The Nomiki Show.
Why do they think it's worth it? They're dragging this out. You're making a case against them. It's not like they have public approval ratings that are great. And it's not like it's not like fortune is on their side in terms of climate change. So what's the point of this?
I think first of all, Chevron is a complex organization that doesn't have one viewpoint. I think the people running the policy vis-a-vis this kind of thing, Hugh Pate, the general counsel, Michael Wirth, the CEO, some of the board members, have a very myopic view of what is in Chevron's enlightened self-interest. I don't think this is in Chevron's self-interest at all. There are several very significant Chevron shareholders who have challenged management over their mishandling of this litigation. So I don't think this makes rational sense. Now, I think psychologically they're so angry. Remember, this is an industry that's dying. I mean, 50+% of the market value of the big oil companies is fake, in my opinion, meaning it's based on the amount of supply they control that they're never going to be able to access because of global warming. This is an industry in decline. There's serious calls to nationalize the oil industry, to phase it out because it's killing us. And the idea that they would have to deal with a guy like me, by the way, where I'm locked up, I live in a 2-bedroom apartment with my wife and teenage son in the Upper West Side of Manhattan. I work out of my kitchen, okay, and with a lot of other people around the world who also work remotely. But collectively, we crush them in court, and they have the best law firms in the world. They're deeply angry. I think they're deeply threatened by the judgment that we won, because the last thing they want to do in a time of industry-wide decline is to pay a few $1 billion to indigenous leaders anywhere in the world. And in Ecuador, that's what would have to happen. So I think they're just furious, but I don't think it makes sense. I mean, what Chevron ought to be doing if they want to survive is investing in clean energy and transitioning the company into something productive, not attacking and locking up lawyers. But, dying industries do crazy things, sometimes desperate things, and that's what I think they're trying to do to me.
How does Ecuador's politics play into this? We had a question from our chat saying that they recently decided to privatize its central bank. Does that play a role? Does the leadership and the tides turning in Ecuador make a difference at all? Or are all, your cases are done there, but go ahead.
Yeah, so, the role of politics in how it impacts court cases is always kind of interesting to some degree, right? For example, in the BP spill in the United States, President Obama, like me, he said, they have to pay. I'm going to put my foot on their neck until they pay. And suddenly there's a $20 billion fund put up voluntarily within 2 weeks. Politics can affect court cases. Now, in Ecuador, the case is over. There's an independent judiciary, like here, and we won the case. And we're now taking a judgment that's been affirmed by Ecuador's highest court into other countries to force Chevron to comply with the rule of law and pay the money it owes so the indigenous peoples can clean their environment and hopefully save a lot of lives. So the politics of Ecuador don't really matter. However, I will say this, Chevron is constantly in Ecuador, visiting the U.S. ambassador, in the U.S. embassy, lobbying whoever the president is, trying to get whatever advantage they can to turn the government of Ecuador against its own citizens who have won this case. And it's gross and it's inappropriate. And we have documents to prove it. I mean, the stuff they've done is mind-blowing. And I'll say this, in the middle of the case in Ecuador, they hired a former State Department official who wrote a memo about how they should go to the State Department or the U.S. government and use the State Department, that is our tax money, to offer a $700 million package of benefits to the Ecuadorian government in exchange for them turning against their own citizens and killing off the case. Okay, this is how they think. And they're fundamentally grifters, right? Think about this. There's all this issue of oil industry subsidies, that Congress has been dealing with since the Biden administration came in. In Ecuador, they took out all the oil, made all the profits, socialized the costs onto these vulnerable communities, and now they have the cleanup tab and they don't have any money to clean it up. That's called grifting. And you see this time and time and again with Chevron and some of the big oil companies. I mean, Chevron is trying to use US taxpayers to buy off the government of Ecuador. And now in my criminal prosecution that I'm facing, this is the coup de grace as far as I'm concerned. The U.S. attorney, that is the public prosecutorial authority, turns down the case. Judge Kaplan appoints a private Chevron law firm. Well, guess who's paying the private Chevron law firm to prosecute me in hundreds of dollars an hour for 3 lawyers?
We are.
We are taxpayers, and they billed over $500,000 to prosecute me for a misdemeanor.
For a misdemeanor.
This is a company that grifts.
Unreal.
And how the heck are taxpayers subsidizing the nation's first corporate criminal prosecution against a successful human rights lawyer? It's shocking.
And I'm going to guess that they didn't have an open bid contract for that firm, because I bet you I could find a lawyer who could do it for $200 an hour.
Yeah, exactly.
For a misdemeanor. I mean, that's basically who you would normally go to.
You know what the law in New York is? If you're a defense lawyer and you represent someone charged with a misdemeanor and you get appointed by the court, you are only allowed to be paid a maximum of $3,400 for that defense. And they've already billed over $500,000 for my prosecution.
Unbelievable. I'm totally believable. When you go into appeal, right? Just for the non-legal experts here, who would be the judge? Who's going to oversee this? Because I heard you mention something about Kaplan again. When does Kaplan get out of the equation? Let's be really simple here. Seems like Kaplan's the problem.
No, we're up to him. He's never going to get out of the equation. I mean, he lives for this. He's almost obsessed with me, and it's everyone who watches the case notices it. I mean, John Kecker, who was my lawyer, one of the great lawyers in America, Purple Heart, clerk for the Supreme Court, he withdrew from representing me. And in his withdrawal motion, he said, Kaplan has let this whole case degenerate into a Dickensian farce. And it's true. And it's this case, when you really look at it objectively, is driven by Chevron, driven by animus, driven by hostility, has nothing to do, the U.S. portion of the case I'm talking about, has nothing to do with a neutral judge carefully considering the facts and applying the law. Kaplan is for all intents and purposes, a Chevron prosecutor. And he has turned his power as a federal judge loose on me. And, if I lose this contempt case, and I think it's inevitable that I will, that I don't have a jury and I'm being prosecuted by a Chevron lawyer and Chevron-linked judge via the Federalist Society, it's cooked. So there will be an appeal. There is a federal appellate court in New York called the Second Circuit Court of Appeals, and we'll see what happens when I get up there.
How about the legal community? Has there been have lawyers come together in support of you? What's the community support looking like?
There's been a massive amount of support for me in the legal community and beyond. For example, 55 Nobel laureates issued a statement demanding my immediate release and dismissal of the case. Just today, by the way, 6 congresspersons, U.S., are sending a letter to Merrick Garland with the Department of Justice demanding this case be reviewed immediately, and with the idea that the private prosecutor will be terminated and the DOJ will take the case. AOC and Jamie Raskin and Jim McGovern and Cori Bush, Jamal Bowman and Tlaib, I forget her last name.
Rashida Tlaib,
all signed this letter. Okay, and it's going out today. That's big. Because really the only thing that's going to protect my human rights, my legal rights, is public scrutiny and public outcry. Judge Preska, who was the Chevron-linked judge who was appointed by Kaplan, has already terminated Zoom access to my trials. They do not want public scrutiny. She's going to limit how many people can get in because of COVID. Every pretrial hearing in my case has been available by Zoom. Hundreds of people have been listening in. Suddenly the trial comes, she's terminating Zoom access. I mean, even the Supreme Court has Zoom access, to its proceedings. The other 2 trials in New York this month of April had Zoom access. So, why is she terminating Zoom access on the eve of trial? There's an international trial monitoring committee, which includes Stephen Rapp, who's Barack Obama's former ambassador for war crimes. He's a war crimes prosecutor. He's never seen anything like this in the United States, such a violation of defendants' due process rights. He's written the court to get a seat so he can monitor the trial. Judge Preska has just ignored him, hasn't responded to his letters. There's a concerted effort by Preska and Kaplan to prevent public scrutiny of this trial, to prevent people from bearing witness to what is a complete violation of my due process rights that is happening as we speak, my detention being the most obvious example, but there's other things as well. So we need to demand that I be protected. We need to understand that there's an intimate connection between my situation and the situation of the affected communities in Ecuador who won the judgment. That is, they're trying to deprive them of one of their main lawyers. And they're locking me up because they don't want me, in my opinion, traveling and helping other lawyers in other countries go after Chevron's assets. Chevron is terrified of this, terrified of me.
Are you going to sue them back? Can you sue them back? No, you just have no.
Of course,
yeah.
But like it ended up before Judge Kaplan because I'm in New York, and he just threw it out. You know, they're called counterclaims.
Right.
And so the reason I hesitated there is, of course, I would love to sue them back, but it seems that I've been unable to get a fair hearing in New York in any court, and also to sue Chevron would require a level of significant resources so lawyers could actually do it effectively.
It'd be fascinating with discovery.
Do not have, but I will say this, we have gotten discovery from them anyway and found some very startling things. Like there was an email in 2009 from a high official who said our long-term defense strategy is to demonize Donziger. I mean, they never planned to litigate on the merits.
Unreal.
There's emails from the general counsel that talk about the need to go after me on every level, lobbying, media, politics, law. And that's what they've been doing. I mean, they've been carrying this out for 10 years, and it's because I continue to fight, they keep raising the ante, and ultimately they want to put me in jail. And they've sort of created this framework, to put me in jail if it succeeds. Now, I'm hoping it doesn't, because I think there's a lot of pressure not to go that final step, given how obvious and ugly as this is starting to look. But, you never know. I mean,
they're creating a martyr. I mean,
a lot of people, look, call it what you want. I have, 100 times more support now around the world than I had before they locked me up. And, that's not good for them. And look, I need the solidarity. I need the support. And by the way, we have a website, freedonziger.org, which you should go to sign up for our campaign. Put it in there. Yeah. freedonziger.org. And you can also donate to our legal defense fund. But, I don't think it makes rational sense for Chevron to have done this. I mean, I think it's a massive overreach. I think they thought I'd lay over and just give up, and I haven't. Instead, we're coming back. And the world is learning about this more and more. The media has been really helpful. A lot of the independent media, ironically, the New York Times has totally ignored me, as have the networks. But we have a lot of support right now, and we're gaining more and more support every day.
This is such an incredible and horrifying story of the state of corporations. As you said, so many, oil and gas, of course, is under attack, and they're losing the narrative. But picking a fight with a lawyer is always a tough one because, I don't know if anybody's ever fought with. I was raised around lawyers. There's a disassociation. The way that you've spoken about your case with such clarity, clearly it's emotional. Clearly it's traumatizing as you've been under house arrest, and it's affected your family and your bank accounts and your ability to travel, not just outside of your home, but internationally as well. And yet, after this many years, you're still speaking out. It was about the case, with such clarity. And I think that is extremely dangerous for them as well. And without fear, knowing exactly where you stand within the law, good and bad. So we wish you the best of luck. We have all the information out there. May 10th is the next hearing, right?
Thing real quick. So
of course, please.
Yeah, there's a rally in front of the courthouse in the morning of May 10th, and then we're asking people to come in and watch the trial. It's at 500 Pearl Street in Lower Manhattan. Excuse me, I know your audience is.
It's okay. I'm a New Yorker.
National, if not global, but whoever's in New York or near New York or friends, please spread the word. Come down to court. There's going to be some incredible people. The head of the Shinnecock Indigenous group from Long Island is coming in traditional dress, and Roger Waters, who's the founder of Pink Floyd, and all sorts of activists and others who care about human rights are going to be down there speaking out about what we believe is really an unfair trial without a jury with a biased judge, and we're hoping that will make some difference.
Thank you, Stephen. Thanks for your courage. Thanks for speaking up, and thanks for educating us about what's really happening, because it is dangerous and it sets a horrible precedent for 2021 Biden administration, et cetera. So we appreciate you. Good luck.
The Nomiki Show.